I don't believe in New Year's resolutions for cars. I believe in understanding what actually shortens their life. Most vehicles don't fail because of one big mistake. They fail because of small things that get ignored for years. Oil left in too long. Coolant that looks fine but isn't. Fluids people assume are lifetime. Systems that degrade quietly until they don't. So this isn't a checklist, and it's not about brands or hype. These are 5 areas I see neglected all the time at my store, things that don't trigger warning lights, don't feel urgent, but absolutely determine how long cars last. You don't need to do everything at once, but if you understand these 5, you'll make better decisions than most drivers on the road. Let's start with the one everyone argues about and still gets wrong. If your oil change interval comes from your dashboard, that's not a strategy, it's a suggestion. Oil life monitors assume ideal conditions. Long drives, steady speeds, clean engines, and consistent temperatures. But most people don't drive that way. Short trips, heat, idling, stop and go driving, load oil faster with moisture, fuel dilution, and contamination. So instead of asking what's the best oil brand, you should ask how long should this oil realistically stay in my engine? Let's get specific, because vague oil advice isn't helpful. If you're running conventional or semi-synthetic oil, the rule is simple. 3,000 miles, no exceptions. This oil breaks down faster under heat, fuel dilution, and short trip driving. If you're running a full synthetic, now you have options, but not unlimited ones. For most drivers, especially mixed city and short trip use, 5,000 miles is where I'm comfortable. That's where I land on my own vehicles, because I'm conservative and I care about longevity. Can you go longer? Yes, but only under strict conditions. If you want to push 6,000 to 7,000 miles, you need a top-tier full synthetic and a high-quality oil filter designed for extended intervals. No budget filters, no unknown oil brands, and no guessing. And if your driving is mostly short trips, idling, heavy heat, or stop-and-go traffic, don't push it. Shorten the interval instead. The reset is this. Extended intervals aren't free. You earn them with oil quality, filtration, and driving conditions. Oil longevity isn't about optimism, it's about discipline. Your temperature gauge is not an early warning system, it's a damage indicator. By the time a car actually overheats, the cooling system has usually been deteriorating quietly for years. Coolant doesn't just control temperature. It prevents corrosion, lubricates seals, and protects aluminum surfaces inside the engine. Over time, those corrosion inhibitors get used up, even if the coolant still looks clean. Here's where people get misled. Checking the overflow tank only tells you the level. It tells you nothing about acidity, corrosion protection, or internal buildup. For modern vehicles, coolant should be completely exchanged every 5 years or about 100,000 miles, and sooner if the vehicle sees heavy heat, short trips, or towing. That's not because coolant suddenly fails, it's because corrosion protection slowly degrades until damage starts internally. Old coolant attacks radiators, heater cores, water pumps, and head gaskets from the inside out. That's why cooling system failures often feel sudden, but they're not. The reset here is mindset. Coolant is maintenance, not lifetime fluid. If you want an engine to last, you don't wait for it to run hot. You maintain the chemistry that keeps it from ever getting there. When a manufacturer calls transmission fluid lifetime, they aren't talking about the life of the transmission. They're talking about the life of the warranty. Automatic transmission fluid is the hardest working lubricant in your vehicle. It's a hydraulic fluid, a coolant, and a friction modifier all at once. And its greatest enemy is heat. Here's the math. For every 20-degree increase above 175 degrees Fahrenheit, the life of that fluid is approximately cut in half. In a climate like Florida with high ambient temps, heavy idling, and stop-and-go traffic, it's remarkably easy to see transmission temps climb past 200 degrees. At those temperatures, your lifetime fluid is oxidizing and losing its chemical ability to protect your valve body and friction plates twice as fast. That's why I don't follow normal service intervals. For real-world longevity, 30,000 to 50,000 miles is the sweet spot. If you tow or live in a hot climate, stay at 30,000. If you're a highway cruiser, 50,000 is your limit. But a word of caution. If you have a high mileage vehicle that's been neglected for years, don't just rush into a high pressure flush. The high detergency of the fresh fluids can sometimes dislodge debris in a worn system, leading to more harm than good. In those cases, talk to a qualified transmission specialist about your specific situation. Every transmission, from traditional automatics to CVTs, has its own threshold for risk. Sometimes a gentle drain and fill is the right move. Sometimes it's best to leave it alone. So stop waiting for a hard shift or hesitation to tell you it's time. By then, the damage is already done. Maintain the chemistry and you'll maintain the machine. Some of the most expensive brake failures don't start with the brakes, they start with the fluid. Brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture over time. Even in a sealed brake system, moisture slowly enters through rubber hoses, seals in the reservoir. Those materials are not airtight. They're microporous. Over years of heat cycles and pressure changes, small amounts of moisture accumulate in the fluid. And as that moisture content rises, two things happen. First, the boiling point drops, which matters during heavy braking, towing, and long downhill driving. But the bigger long-term issue is internal corrosion. That corrosion happens inside brake lines, calipers, master cylinders, and especially ABS modules. I see this constantly. People calling about ABS modules on relatively new cars. Parts that are difficult to source, expensive to rebuild, and often blamed on electronics. But in reality, many of those failures begin in the hydraulic side of the system, not the electrical side. For most vehicles, brake fluid should be flushed every 2 to 3 years, regardless of mileage. Not topped off, flushed. Waiting until the fluid looks dark or the pedal feels soft means corrosion has already been happening internally for years. This isn't about daily braking feel. It's about protecting some of the most expensive and least available components on the vehicle. Brake fluid isn't a lifetime fill. It's a moisture sponge with a service life. Most fuel system problems don't show up suddenly, they build quietly over time. Modern engines, especially direct injection units, are incredibly efficient, but they're prone to carbon buildup by design. Fuel injectors now operate with microscopic tolerances, and over time, heat and fuel oxidation create deposits that disrupt the spray pattern. That buildup doesn't announce itself. It slowly degrades fuel atomization and combustion efficiency. When a driver finally notices a rough idle or drop in mileage, they assume the component has failed. In reality, nothing failed, it just got dirty. Now a reality check on fuel system cleaners. They aren't magic, and they aren't mechanic in a bottle. If you have a GDI engine, these cleaners do an excellent job on your injector tips and piston crowns. But remember, in a direct injection system, fuel never touches the back of your intake valves. You have to manage that carbon buildup separately. These additives are strictly about maintaining an injection spray pattern to ensure a complete, clean burn. Used occasionally, once or twice a year or every 10,000 miles, a quality cleaner is a high-leverage maintenance tool. Products like Amsoil PI, Royal Purple, Techron, Redline all perform well. Use them. And timing matters. Dumping cleaner in every tank doesn't add protection, it just wastes money. And if you're already using top-tier fuel, you're ahead of the game. A study by AAA found that non-top-tier fuels left 19 times more deposits than fuels with high detergent packages. Fuel system maintenance isn't about chasing symptoms. It's about keeping small tolerances clean so problems never form in the first place. Clean systems age gracefully. Dirty ones wait until you feel the bill. If you notice a pattern here, it's this. Most vehicle failures don't come from neglecting repairs, they come from neglecting maintenance chemistry. Fluids degrade, contamination builds. Corrosion starts long before symptoms show up. None of this requires being a mechanic. It just requires understanding what actually matters and not waiting for something to feel wrong. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, I go deeper on this stuff in my email list. No spam, no hype, just practical explanations, maintenance thinking, and things I don't always put on social media. If you want that, the link's below. If not, save this video and come back to it when you're planning maintenance. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to stop ignoring the right things. That's how cars quietly make it to high mileage.